Sitting here in my cabin on this cruise. It's a Wednesday. I have until Saturday. What am I to do? Anyway, listening to Amy Winehouse. She came on right after the song I mentioned earlier in my stories, Lost on You from LP. She came on, and you think of, classic legendary tale of the tortured artist, So much to be said for it. On one hand, the perspective viewing from the outside, you would look at somebody like her and say, look at all that she has going for her. Look at the fame, look at the success, look at the money, look at the talent. But there are things that are just deeper than that. And all of these external things can't fix, they heal these wounds. And we live in a world where, we get the impression that we can heal internally as long as we fix our circumstances externally. And that's rarely the case. On some degree, I think that we have to get to a certain place where we have stability so we could allow ourselves the time to focus on what's going on the inside. Because if your time is spent just chasing stability, right? Money, working a job, never getting ahead, never really excelling, just kind of staying in the same cycle, never really afford yourself the time or the leisure or the privilege, really, to fix some of these things that are going on the inside, And the interesting thing about that, the conundrum, I guess, you got to bear with me. I'm buzzed, but I think I'm speaking with a certain degree of clarity. The conundrum with that is that the internal world is what determines the external world. So everything that's going on in here and going on in here will create the circumstances out here. But if the circumstances out here are preventing you from getting in here, and in here, you're kind of stuck. You're stuck. But it's a testament that, fame, fortune, money, these things are not valuable and they will not heal you. Look at her at the height of her success. Was on stage. The addiction got her. Couldn't beat the addiction. I know it all too well. And, and it was her demise, and the money couldn't stop it. In fact, many would say, and probably rightfully so, it added to it, made it worse, it exacerbated it. Look at Russell Brand. Again, height of his success was when he was the most, was at his lowest at the height of his success. When you look at Amy Winehouse, though, it's such a, what a great sound, that classic. And if you really listen to the way that her songs carry, one thing that I always appreciated about music is how sounds can underline statements and create particular, obviously feelings, but they can, I always think of like a Tom and Jerry episode. Like, these sounds are so necessary to create these. It could be a feeling of quirkiness. It could be a feeling of curiosity, a peculiar kind of thing. But like sounds like, and when you listen to Amy Winehouse, like there was all of these different things. It wasn't just like a beat with a loop or just like very, very well produced. I was always impressed by her music, and I really love the way that they moved forward with her marketing and her image, taking on that vintage style, from everything to the way that she dressed, to the music of, and she was just really, she was the real thing, and she was just disturbed. She had problems, you know. But she's one of those artists, right? That it's like, I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that don't want to hear Amy Winehouse. Like, an Amy Winehouse song comes on, who's like, oh, turn this off. Like, it's universal. How do you not like Amy Winehouse? What's not to like? You know? To go back to the LP song, Lost on You, this is another thing that I was thinking about. So he says, smoke 'em if you got 'em, 'cause it's going down. All I ever wanted was you. And that's interesting. That's an interesting line right there. Because it's what's not being said in that statement that matters. The in-between those two sentences. So smoke 'em if you got 'em, 'cause it's going down. All I ever wanted was you. So now, what we can gather from that is that he's saying this pain, this lack, this emptiness, this disappointment, this loss has now become my fuel. It has now become my motivator. So smoke 'em if you got 'em, 'cause it's going down. All I ever wanted was you. Let's take a sip of heaven. This can turn around, and raise a glass or two. Great writing. Take a sip of heaven. It's a whole concept in and of itself. The substance, the shortcut to the feeling of getting to the place that we ultimately want to get to, but cheating. Not doing the things in real life to get us there, to get us to achieve happiness, but the chemical alteration that gives us the feeling of the happiness, contentment, the numbing. So many, turn to that. You see like a drug addict in the street, and on the outside everything is about as horrible as can be. That's the reality of it. But for them, they don't care. Because the feeling is heaven. They're in heaven. Though they're kind of living in hell simultaneously. But, let's, in hopes that we can turn this thing around, to have a drink or two. Take a sip of heaven, this can turn around. I almost wonder if he was maybe referring to a whiskey, with the smoke when they light it up. That might be me reaching. So it's all of this stuff, but that motivation, nothing motivates you like the pain, the loss, a little bit of ego in there, You denied me, I was not good enough. Oh, it lights a fire, And, well, let's look at it. I mean, what inspired that song? That loss. There's so much to be taken from it, and it's everything is interpretation. How do we perceive our situations? How do we somebody can take free time but nothing to do, and they can say, I'm bored, I need something to do. Or somebody else could say, ooh, I have all of this time to do something. So it's just like your lowest low can be the thing that takes you to the highest high. It's perspective. What inspired that song. Pain, loss, all the things I've lost on you. Is that lost on you? There's bars too. Let's acknowledge that. Some perspective for the day. I'll leave it at that.